Namaskar. My name is Shruti Deora, and I'm the co-host of this podcast by Radio Eka. As part of our mindfulness series, I have the pleasure of welcoming my dear friend, Ashima Goyal. Ashima and I go back a long way. We went to college together, just 1 year apart, and college years being our formative years, let's just say we grew up together for a few years on campus. So, welcome, Ashima. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Shruti. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show, in your program. So thank you so much.
Okay, let me just quickly introduce you. So Ashima is a person of numerous talents, a writer, an editor, a socio-emotional learning educator, an artist, a community builder, the visionary behind Romania's first Karma Kitchen, a cook and food blogger, and a spirited volunteer. Her service has spanned from online space holding to hands-on direct disaster aid in grassroots villages after serious floods in Uttarakhand, to transformative hands, head, heart retreats. Her work has focused on transforming her environment by first transforming herself through small acts of service. Her mantra is bloom where you are planted. Her education includes electrical engineering from IIT Bombay and Masters in Social Policy and Development from London School of Economics. She taught mindfulness to elementary school kids in Mongolia and Romania, and currently develops learning products that bring holistic education to school students. So welcome again, Ashima. And we are excited to have this conversation. And especially as a mother of two, I was really looking forward to having this interesting discussion on how to inculcate mindfulness in kids. So before we start on the topic, would love to hear something about your mindfulness journey and especially how you got into working with kids.
I think they are both quite tied together. So I started working with kids back when we were in college. There was a municipality school next to IIT, and I used to go and volunteer there twice a week. So, like, just being aware of the challenges that some of the kids were facing back in home, because when you are coming to school, you're not just coming for an English or a maths or a science class. You are bringing your home with you. You are that person, right? So that was my first introduction to a whole being, in that sense. Why education needs the child to be, like, needs to see child as a whole being, and I could see the challenges in the system back then. But of course, like, you're studying, and then you start working and you join the corporate job, and I continued to volunteer with kids in that sense. But it was only when I went to Angola, which is in 2013, that I saw trauma of a very different scale. So Angola had 30 years of civil war. Most of the kids I was working with were street kids who had been abandoned by their families or had seen their families disappear in some sense. And that I'd not seen that trauma before, and I did not know how to handle it. Like, frankly speaking, I did not know how to handle it. And I remember this one incident that is so etched in my memory, because that's the turning point for me from anything that I was doing towards mindfulness. I was doing an art session with kids, and I had to leave before the session got over. So I left, and I told the other facilitator to take it forward. And the next day when I came back, there was a painting which a girl had made with a high heel, like the stiletto punching into a heart and blood coming out. And I spent a month trying to find that girl. I couldn't. And that just left me, like, I spoke with my founder, and I was like, we need a psychologist here. We need somebody who can handle this trauma. And I started researching more, and I realized that's when I got introduced to the concept of mindfulness for kids. And I also realized that I can't teach mindfulness unless I'm practicing mindfulness. So I went for my first Vipassana course at that time, while so many of my friends had gone there and had asked me to go, like, it's ever since. And this is the incident that pushed me towards it. So it's like, so that was my beginning of mindfulness for myself, and also mindfulness for kids, because then I started volunteering for Vipassana for kids camps, and I got trained as a mindfulness educator. I got trained as an SEL educator. So that point, that painting is my turning point in life.
Wow, that is quite a story. And it is really heartrending that there's so much trauma around the world, especially and what kids go through when civil conflict and war happens around us. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So what how would you define mindfulness? It's a very let's say overused word in our modern society. And so what do you think mindfulness means, and what are the ways to build mindfulness or inculcate mindfulness into our lives?
Like so Thich Nhat Hanh, like in a lot of his talks, he would say that every moment is a happy moment. And if we have enough conditions to breathe, we have enough conditions to be happy. So for me, that momentary awareness and happiness, like you said, like mindfulness is such an overused term. And it's got so many definitions around. Something that resonates with me is am I totally consciously aware of this moment, what's happening inside me and what's happening in my surroundings? Am I present to it? And that's mindfulness to me. So, for example, if I'm drinking a cup of tea, can I experience the warmth of it in my palms? Can I actually smell the flavors? Or am I actually drinking what's next on my to-do list? What to cook for dinner? When are the kids coming back? Like, am I drinking all of those, or am I drinking my tea? Is
Right.
my is the way I would define mindfulness. And like the second part was when you asked like how to cultivate it, right? I mean, it's like a lot of people whom I speak with and have worked with, their first vision of mindfulness is like a Buddha-like person sitting, eyes closed on a cushion with hands in a mudra and on a lap or on a knee, right? And then they would all be like, this is not for us. Like we can't sit still or I don't have time to sit still. I can just barely get through my day or the next 5 minutes. And where do I find time for this? Right? And actually, a lot of centers that I have worked with would tell that people adopt or do meditation until they have kids, and then they come back when the kids have left for college. So it shouldn't be that as a parent I can't practice mindfulness, right? Mindfulness is so practical, and like there are informal short ways of practicing mindfulness. So can I like I said, like can I bring awareness to my tea? I look forward to having like, when will that time come and I'll stop and have my cup of tea, and then I waste it, like because I'm just like thinking what's to do next. So like something simple as just pausing to realize that you're breathing. Like we think of breath as a very autopilot. We sometimes don't even realize we are breathing, right? We don't feel it. So just to pause and say, okay, I'm breathing in. Let me just be grateful for this nourishing air, and then I'm breathing out, and let me feel it in my nostrils or on my just on top of my lips, right? But we don't do it. And something like yoga, like you are a yoga teacher, and when you combine the movement with your breath, that's when the awareness of it comes, right? Unless you do that, yoga is not effective. And actually, abdominal breathing is something that I've done so often with the kids, and they love it. Like you just lie down on the floor and you put your hands on your tummy, and you are so. The breath is something that will always be there with you. And if you can provide yourself and your kids with that anchor, that wherever you're feeling anxious, just take that 1 minute to have 3 grateful breaths or 3 mindful breaths, and you put your hand on your tummy and feel it go up and down. That's that it's an easy practice. It's a short practice. It doesn't look overwhelming. While sitting on a cushion looks overwhelming to a lot of people. And I'm not saying that meditation is not great. I am a meditator. I do it. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But it's okay if you can't. Like start where you are with what you have.
No, absolutely. I think the point is that for people who are new to this, it might seem like a chore, right? Oh, another thing for me to do in my day. And that is definitely, let's say maybe discourages some people.
Yeah.
And I think you're very right that mindfulness can really help parents. I can vouch for that. So it helps us to be more patient with our kids, to be more present with our kids, to really enjoy the time that we have with them. So I think going back to your breath sounds like a wonderful tool. And just, I mean, I love just in the middle of the day, just stepping out into the sun and looking at the sky. That's just my favorite thing.
Even recently I was reading an article on touch as nutrition. And as kids, we live a very tactile life, right? The kids are held, kids cuddle, kids roll on the floor, kids play in the grass. But as we grow, we reserve touch for a very appropriate moment with a very appropriate person, and actually our tactile experiences become much lesser. And touch is not just tingling. Touch actually impacts our brain. So can we have more of those moments with our own family? I mean, family falls under that appropriateness. We don't even talk about touch in conservative cultures. Like if I see my parents or my husband's parents, till I had a baby, the amount of times they were actually touching another human being was very limited. Now they're like all the time holding the baby, right? But it was very limited. So how do we, like, even those are practices of bringing awareness to yourself within, like what's happening within you.
Very interesting, very interesting. Bringing in the cultural aspects too. Yeah. So going back to kids though, so many times, we have heard and we actually see that kids are totally present, right? And that's really the source of their joy and their unabashed energy. I can totally see that in my 5-year-old. But so first, I would like to ask, like, do kids need mindfulness practice? And if yes, why? Like, is it something about the changing, environment today, or how else can mindfulness help kids?
So true. I mean, kids are totally present in the moment. And I say this like from my experience. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a trained psychologist, so I don't know what their brains really are. But as much as I've worked with elementary kids and as a 2-year-old mother, I see my child being totally present. And I don't think they'll need any mindfulness training if adults weren't around them. Because I think they learn, like, they don't have a concept of future, right? They don't have a concept of future. They want, if they want something, they want it now. If they want to do something, they want to do it now. And that makes them so curious about their surroundings. That makes them so observant about their surroundings. I mean, I remember I was once taking Sarah to the park, and I was in a hurry to take her to the park, but she wanted to observe the leaf that has fallen down. She wanted to see the brick that has to come out of the pavement. She wanted to walk like one leg up, one leg down. And I'm like all the time feeling that, chal, park mein chal, like, let's go to the park, it will be fun there, right? But it's fun right now.
Yeah.
So I think they are not in a hurry. They have no urgency to finish, but they learn it from us when we tell them, like, I'm sure it sounds familiar, right? Finish your food and then we'll go and play. Finish your work and then you can call your friends. So that to do what you're doing right now with the carrot of what's going to happen next is something they learn from adults.
Yeah. And also the morning rush, right? Like, I can see that my daughter gets so upset because we're constantly rushing her to get her ready for school, because it's always like that, oh, we're gonna get late, finish off quickly. I hear you, totally hear you.
In fact, there's a very beautiful picture book called Wait. It's by Antoinette Fortis. For only 2 words, wait and hurry. It's a mother who's pulling, like, who needs to take her child to the school. So she's to get him ready. She's to take him. They walk to the train station. They take the train. It rains and have to reach the school. The child is telling his mom to wait when he sees the man feeding the ducks in the park, when he waves to the construction worker, when he looks at the colors on the ice cream man's poster, and the mother is always like pulling the child saying, hurry, hurry, hurry. And finally it's raining and He wants to lick the raindrop, and mother is just like trying to put the raincoat and hurry. And finally, there is like this huge, big double rainbow, and the child is like, "No, mom, wait." And the mother is like, "Yes, wait." And the first line that author wrote, like, no, when you are giving acknowledgement of a book or like, who do you dedicate this book to? She says, to my mother who waited. And I find that so beautiful. And I find that such a deep reminder to myself all the time that I will always have somewhere to go. I will always have something to do, but do I need to hurry? Like, does that urgency need to be so much there?
Yeah.
No. And yes, mindfulness. So they need mindfulness because they can unlearn this. We can unlearn this. So yeah, we need to keep our awareness in the present. That's what I.
Yeah. I think the only time I feel like, even my 5-year-old would benefit from mindfulness is just, when she's in a, like in a tantrum rage, right? Like her mind is stuck on something she wants. One of us has said no, and then she doesn't know how to let that go. So I think, I don't know, would mindfulness help? Would it make it easier for a kid to let something go, whether it's, the candy at the checkout aisle that I said no to?
So not immediately, like how kids make sense of things is not only what's happening to them, but how their parents and their teachers and their other caregivers are responding to it, right? So if you are calm, they will be able to understand. If you are composed and they learn from it, right? So if you are not that, and the way you say no is going to impact them. And in that moment, they can't see anything. Like they said, that they don't have a concept of future, that no, I only want the blue candy. But the blue and the red and the yellow are all the same, but we have the red and the yellow at home and you'll get it. They won't understand it at that moment.
Yeah. Okay. So this is again an interesting question, because as parents, we have, whether we like it or not, or whether we tame our aspirations, we do want our kids to grow into calm and balanced and compassionate individuals, right? And with some sense of responsibility. So where do you think mindfulness fits in the grand scheme of raising kind and responsible individuals?
Yeah. I'll tell a story of when I was I was working into the school in Romania, and we were trying to introduce a social and emotional learning program. And the teachers were like, we have to teach maths, we have to teach science, we have to teach English, we have to teach geography. There's no time to teach SEL. And our response was that it's not that SEL in addition to all of those things. SEL is the plate on which you teach all of those things. So the way you teach, what you teach, can be based on SEL. So like the same way I would say that if you ask me where does it fit into the grand scheme, then mindfulness is the fabric of it, or the foundation on which you build conditions where your kids can thrive. Like the way you define what is thriving for your own child will be different from parent to parent. Like I might just want that she's able to build social relationships, good relationships, she's able to be kind, and she will be doing good in school, do well in the world. I mean, every parent will have a different definition, but mindfulness is that foundation. Is what my understanding is. And like we're human beings, right? We're not human doings. So how do we are always doing something. How do we bring that be, right? To be the human being. And we need to start early on that. And that's where mindfulness fits in. And like, I feel the word has become very loaded. It's not that complicated. It's actually just awareness. Like, how often do we feel our hands? Like, our hands are doing so many things on the way. Like, can I just stop and feel the hands? Like, okay, thank you. Like, thank you, hands.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head, because I also feel like there is so much doing in in our world, and apparently a lot of people seem to think that's a badge of honor, right? To be busy all the time. So there is really not much opportunity to just take a step back and be. And I really cherish those moments whenever I can find them. So
Like kids don't have time to get bored these days.
right.
It's very important to just have those moments when you're not doing anything, and they don't know what to do then. They were like, I have to do something.
Right.
And it's just like, I often feel that we've removed the being part and we've made ourselves human beings. So,
Yeah. So it's interesting that this was a question on my mind. Now I don't know how to rephrase it, because I was going to ask, what are some of the activities that you would recommend to cultivate mindfulness in kids? But now I'm wondering, probably activity is not the right word for it. Or let's just say, how do you cultivate mindfulness in kids? And you mentioned this word SEL, social emotional learning. Could you talk to us a little bit more about it? What does it mean? And what are some of the ways that you incorporate that into the curriculum, or just into
so
schools learning at schools? Yeah.
SEL stands for social and emotional learning, and it was developed. It's been developed by multiple organizations and frameworks, but one of the earlier frameworks is by Casel in US. And the work, I think back in 1999 or somewhere, is the first time when there was a report that came, the Dolores report, which looked at education beyond academic education. So education earlier was just 3 hours, like you need to know how to read, write, and arithmetic. That used to be education. But now education is more like learning to be, learning to learn. Like you should be able to, because we don't know what we're teaching our kids for. Mm-hmm. So it's okay, we can teach them maths right now, but they also need to know what is problem solving. They also need to know. So SEL is more about self-awareness, self-regulation, being able to resolve conflicts more easily, being able to develop more positive relationships. That's what SEL is about. Mm-hmm. And how we, like, one of the simplest exercises that I'll tell you about SEL is giving kids the vocabulary to express their emotions. A lot of times kids are frustrated because they can't express what's going on in them. So telling them to understand the signs that, okay, are you feeling too cold in your hands, or are you feeling too sweaty in your hands, or do you have butterflies in your stomach? Then that means that something is happening. So just give yourself a moment at that time, right? And then so the more words you have for the emotions that you go through, the more granularity you have, the easier it is for you to express it, and the easier it is for you to respond to it and not react. Like the fight or flight mode, as well as against to responding to a situation. So that's what SEL goes for in an education environment. And so both like at home or at school or at any other place, right? If you ask me, like, what are the ways to build mindfulness, a framework that I've often used is a take on the three monkeys, like Gandhiji's three monkeys. Right? No, speak no evil, see no evil, hear no evil, right? So I would say speak intentionally, like speak from a space of truth and intention. Like what? So if you do these circles with your kids, like at the end of the day or at the dinner table, or when you're putting, like, what went well, or what was it, like, how was your day today, right? Give them the vocabulary to be able to express what went. Like if they're not able to express it well, give them that vocabulary, and you share yourself. Like I said, be vulnerable. And if they see you as having difficult times, they will be able to share their own difficult times also. Like as a mother, I don't always need to be somebody who has everything under control for my kids. I don't have to be a superwoman for my kid. I have my shortcomings, but I should be able to see them, accept them, share them as well, right?
Absolutely.
I found it difficult. How do you think we can work together for this? So give them, so speak from that space. And these circles really help. Initially, you might find them very unnatural. Initially, you might find them, like, what are we doing? And it's so cliched, like have a gratitude circle. Let's look for three things that were good, that went good in the day, but they really become very natural. They become so flowing, and kids look forward to it. So I used to teach English in Angola, and another thing that we used to do was that we used to start our class with 1 minute of silence. And a lot of kids will smile at it. A lot of kids will giggle at that time, but some will just sit, and others will sit because some of them are sitting. Some will sit because the teacher is sitting, but they are physically coming from another class. They are bringing so much from that. You can't expect the child's mind to just switch from one activity to another. You need to give a pause in between.
Fair enough.
And that's what, and it really helped us. Like our classroom was just so much more managed after a month, after I think a month and 45 days of doing that practice. It just sit. And some kids will still not sit, which is okay. Like, it's fine. So one was like, speak intentionally. And another was listen deeply. Like listening has become a pandemic. Like we don't have the capacity, we don't have the capability, we don't have the patience to listen. And our kid might just be saying things, and our minds are still going on with our to-do list that, okay, I still need to finish preparing the dinner after I listen to your
story,
your complaint of what happened in the park with the child. But if we just stop, listen, respond, then we build them into more confident beings. We build them into more mindful and aware beings. Like, can we point out things? That, okay, what happened then? Like, how did you felt? And where did you feel it? So they are more aware of themselves, what's happening within them when things are happening outside, and how to respond to it. And our internal signals happen much before we actually feel it. Right? So just to build that awareness, to identify the internal signals earlier on. And then, so see the good, like help them see the good, notice the good and amplify the good. So one of my mentors used to say, there's a positive line to each one of us and there's a negative line to each one of us. We can either reduce the negative or we can increase the positive. So let's focus our energies on seeing what is good in myself and amplifying that good, seeing what is good in the others and amplify that good in the other. And the negative will take care of itself, hopefully. But yeah, so those are the three, like that's the framework I use, and I develop activities around it. And
that's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. One small activity that I had done briefly, I mean, it didn't sustain yet, was just at the end of the day, write down on a piece of paper one thing you're grateful for, that day, and put it in a jar. And I think I find that activity quite powerful, actually, because what happens is, I think somehow there is something about our environment today that even my 5-year-old I can observe she's focusing on what she did not get, right? So if we were at a store and we picked up all the art supplies, walking out of the store, she's still telling me that I did not get that candy from the checkout aisle. And when I tell her that, oh, we got all of these other things for you, but I think at that moment, it does not register. So it has to be at another moment and communicate or whatever, acknowledged at another moment. But I think you're right. I think it's just a lot about how we go about our day, how we end our day, how do we acknowledge what happened during our day, and giving some simple breathing tools. Though, I mean, it is, let's just be real, it's not very easy to take those 3 deep breaths when you are in a fit of anger, right? Whether it's an adult
not that time. No. It doesn't happen that time. It has to be a sustained practice for it to become. Yeah, so it's like, okay, like right now, can I just take a deep breath in and put my shoulders up and just put them shoulders out, down, take the breath out.
Yeah. Yeah, and talking about the pandemic, see, especially with remote schooling, screen time is a big pandemic, right? So do you think there are some, special things that we should keep in mind as parents in terms of how to keep our kids curious and mindful about their physical surroundings and about the people, in their surroundings? Because we are competing with the very attractive screens these days.
I know. In fact, my child is 2-year-old, right? So she's totally a Zoom baby. The first time she saw her grandparents was on a Zoom call, and I'm like, she has too much more screen exposure than I would have actually wanted a 1 or 2 year, and she doesn't even have school yet.
Yeah.
So of course there is a lot of screen time, but that also means that we need to be fiercely protective of the non-screen time.
Mm-hmm.
Like be very conscious. So like look at your timetable, look at your child's timetable, and then plan those experiences with them. Like if you're cooking, like you need to cook, have them stand with you, like make them smell the ingredients, make them put things in the pan and turn. And so you're doing things together, you're doing the chores that need to be done, but they need not be the chores, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell them how to feel the pulses on their hands, or feel the water on their hands, feel the soap bubbles on their hands. So every day, every ordinary activity is sacred, and we don't have to look for anything outside. You know, like when you're doing the dishes, do the dishes. I mean, it doesn't need to be, you don't need to do anything else at that time. So one thing is that, yes, be very protective of the non-screen time. Like so when I started working, and it was very recent that I was seeing that, okay, oh my God, my daughter is up for 12 hours and I'm there for 5 of those 12 hours, 7 hours, I'm not there with her. But what am I doing in those 5 hours is something I want to be very, very mindful of. What experiences am I creating for her? And I need to do my chores as well during those 5 hours. It doesn't have to be a separate time. So ordinary, everyday things, what I have, where I am, is where I create these experiences. And then a friend of mine does it very well. I'm not so good at it. I'm not a lot of people I know have been able to do, but something like no technology day. Like he's very, very conscious that every Sunday is the day with kids, and only in case of an emergency a phone comes into the picture. Otherwise, laptops are absolutely a no, like devices are a no.
Wow.
So no technology days is an example, and he's based in US. He's based in California, working with something like.
I think we need to start with some no technology hours.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like start where you are, right? What's comfortable to you. So some no technology time, like this is the time when we are doing something and there's no technology that comes in. And also like whenever there is space, create those external like camping trips and hiking trips where the kids are, and help the kids notice, like take them slow, not who reaches the top first, but maybe who reaches the top last and notices the tiny ladybug that was walking and notices the leaf that had dried up, or so had picked up the dandelion and blew into it. So by like we need to create those slow movements. Like how do we slow down? And we can create those. Like it's not absolutely out of the way to create them. Like you do go on hiking trips, and you do go on camping trips, or you do go on parks, and depending on where you are, to the beach or to the river front. And then how do we take it slow instead of going fast? I think that's what it is. Like awareness comes when we are slow.
No, that's really well said, Ashma. I wish I think if all of us just have that intent of maybe slowing down, especially when we are with our kids, and really do our best to be present, and as you said, not thinking about our next meeting while our child is showing us our schoolwork. I think it would really help our kids, but also really help us, right? Because the joy that comes from being present in the moment, isn't it? So we are really able to live fully and be more mindful about it. So that's wonderful. Any closing thoughts from you? This has
Maybe I'll reiterate, right? The parents need to very actively create these mindfulness experiences for themselves and for their children. And like when you are being the change, like you change the being itself. Like you might have to put in that effort to be the change, but then you will change yourself and it will become effortless. And you keep going back and forth, which is okay. Like, it's fine. Just like I always like think that start with what you have and where you are, and you always have your breath, you always have your body, you always have your touch. you always have your chores and bring mindfulness to your chores. And yeah.
No, that's wonderful. I think for that's a very good kind of entry point that you have given, right? Because a lot of us might feel that, oh, let me get the chores out of the way and then I can do, something with the kids, or do a mindfulness practice. But what you're saying is, just wherever you are, be mindful, right? So
Yeah.
that's beautiful. And hopefully if our kids observe us doing that, then they can also imbibe the same approach, or the same value.
So kids are like a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
They will keep on absorbing everything that you put in their way. So they're so true reflections of what we are saying, what we are doing, and what we are not saying and not doing also. Like,
or the incongruence between what we say and what we do, right? The incongruence between what we say and what we
do. Yeah, very true. Yes, that too.
Yeah, no, I think there are so many times the kids point out something and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I was doing that. And they make you aware about where you were probably a bit off about something. So that's great. We have a lot to learn from our kids, or let's say we have a lot to unlearn by being with our kids, right?
Yeah, like I said, if we were all kids, if there were no adults, we needed no mindfulness because we would have been totally present. So
wonderful. This has been an awesome conversation and fun, and thank you so much for joining. And are there any, if you would like to share any resources or pointers with our listeners, as just just for them to start any reading or any activities on mindfulness with kids, we'll be happy to put that in show notes.
Sure, I will send you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ashima. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's an amazing work that you guys are doing. So I am a user of Eka too. So that's why I'm saying I'm grateful for what you've created. And thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful.